Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Albert Cho. In April, the US, Japan, the Philippines, and Australia held their first joint naval exercises in the South China Sea. Shortly after, defense chiefs from these four countries gathered in Hawaii for their second joint meeting in May. In addition, just a few days before this meeting, Chinese Coast Guard ships fired water cannons at two Philippine patrol vessels in the waters of Scarborough Shoal, causing damage to both. Joining us today are Liu Fu-kuo, Director of National Chung-Cheng University, Taiwan Center for Security Studies, and Tsai Jung-hsiang, Professor of Political Science, National Chung-Cheng University. A very warm welcome to both on the show. Following this conflict between China and the Philippines, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the damage to Philippine vessels and injuries to their crew in the South China Sea constitutes irresponsible behavior in disregard of international law. So the four countries, the US, Japan, the Philippines, and Australia, have since vowed deeper cooperation, targeting the CCP and even the PLA. So what is your take on this, Professor Liu?
This incident, of course, is openly watched by global media for now. But it would be very hard to say who should be responsible for that, because it happens surrounding the so-called disputed water area. China was, of course, defending its claimed sovereignty, but of course the Philippines also do the same. And that is something that controversial now. But of course, for now, because under US-China strategic competition, it will come with such a really good challenge for China and the US as well as the Philippines at this moment. So this incident, of course, is unfortunate. It represents that current South China Sea situation is not as peace as we expected. So perhaps something is coming on the way. And lately, lots of information suggested the Philippine side is preparing to move further and launch another wave of challenge to Chinese, especially surrounding the Scarborough Shoal. So I would predict or probably envision something coming on the way later this month. And obviously, the society in Manila has such a strong reaction to Chinese action against the Philippines ships. So this would be something we can follow through. Something is just on the way to be happening.
Mm-hmm. So probably there will be an escalation in this issue.
Yes.
Also, Professor Tsai, how does the second joint meeting improve the four countries' capability of containing CCP's influence in the South China Sea, in your observation?
Yes, because Secretary Austin tried to describe this kind of group as a squad, right? Mm-hmm. Four countries. But the thing is that for China to see this group, they say it's a group that try to contain China. And China has warned that the group risk exacerbating regional risks. So the thing is that for China, they try to twist this as it's like to put the cards before the horse. Mm-hmm. It was China attacking Filipino vessels, not the other way around. But it is very challenging for U.S. or the squad to push back against the Chinese gray wrong activities, unless they invoke Article 4 of the Security Treaty between the Philippines and the U.S. So the thing is that for President Marcos, he said maybe we can invoke the treaty, but only with one condition: if a foreign power kills a Filipino soldier. So the thing is that China may continue such coercive actions like Professor Liu said, but I don't think they will escalate to a military attack on the Philippines, because it's going to involve the United States, the most powerful country in the world. But for the Philippines, what can they do? They can attract international media attention as soon as possible, okay? And they can accuse China's coercive actions in international fora. And they can confront directly with the Chinese, the Coast Guard, by defense by defensive postures. Because for China, if you are pushover, China is gonna keep pushing you until you give up.
Okay, the second joint meeting was hosted by U.S. Defense Chief Austin, and including Philippine Defense Secretary Teodoro, the Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defense Richard Marles, and the Japanese Minister of Defense Kohara Minoru. The meeting took place at the U.S. military, its regional headquarters, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command at Camp H.M. Smith in the hills above the Pearl Harbor. So my question for Professor Liu is that, does this mean the U.S. will take the lead in containing, the CCP in the South China Sea and depart from the past pattern of so-called offshore balancing, hoping that the Philippines and even Taiwan will do more?
Of course, I support your question. Obviously, 4 countries joined together with the original effort by the U.S. government. Obviously, there is a hope from the United States effort to combine with 4 countries together and putting more heavy weight on the Philippine side vis-a-vis China. But whether this means that the U.S. is going to directly involve in this thing, it is still deserve to watch it further, because we know that unless there is something happening in between China and the Philippines, for example, China occupies any legal land of the Philippines or damage or killed people, then it would activate mutual defense treaty between the U.S. and the Philippines. But obviously, the reason why China is conducting more like a gray zone strategy, which trying to avoid such a direct military confrontation. So I'm pretty sure there is something to show to Beijing. The U.S. is putting more weight on the Philippine side, supporting the Philippines, bringing Australia and Japan behind it. But of course, in this particular sense, as you ask, how exactly Taiwan may be able to respond, I think that this is in between the Philippines and China, even if involving South China Sea sovereignty as a Republic of China, Taiwan already claimed for such a long period of time. So it will not be appropriate at this moment we jump on to this scene. But of course, there is a likelihood, as we are working closely on the security dimension with the United States, Japan, and also neighboring country. So there is a potential trend. Taiwan may be linking up with this collaboration later.
Before jumping to the question, Professor Tsai, I still have the follow-up for you. Is that you just mentioned that the gray zone tactic is pretty much utilized by CCP. So what about the United States? It seems to me that the United States would not like to see the escalation in the South China Sea as well, even though there is a dispute about this freedom in navigation on the sides of Western countries. So what might be the U.S. mentality, I mean, especially from the Biden administration, in your observation?
Currently, in between the U.S. and China, obviously there is no strategic consensus between the 2 countries. But having said that, both countries agree they should not really engage too much to run into a conflict or war between these 2 countries. So in the sense, the United States, as I observe, the United States is putting more weight on the Philippine side, trying to lift up the defense capabilities the Philippines needs. So bringing in Japan and Australia. So these 2 countries in the region can also possibly supply Coast Guard capabilities, helping Philippines to stand up further against China. But that would be something to show to China. Now the Philippines would have 3 regional parties backing up, and they are not going to break through. But of course, to show, to me, is more like a political message to Beijing that in the future, if China is messing up with something, it is not just the Philippines, and there would be 3 parties supporting the Philippines behind the scene.
Okay, Professor Tsai, so how will Beijing respond, both politically and militarily, to this 4-country alliance?
I think China will resort to diplomatic intimidation and maybe involve some economic sanctions as tools to put pressure on Taiwan or the Philippines. Okay? But for the Philippines and Taiwan, we need to pull our own weight because it's our own extension strait from China. So militarily, China can use, like Professor Liu say, tsunami slicing strategies or gray zone activities. But for the U.S., the thing is that the buck stops in U.S. U.S. is the big brother in Asia. And the U.S. is implementing we call integrated deterrence strategy that involve using existing capabilities and building new ones, and use all of them in network ways, hand in hand with American allies and partners like Japan, the Philippines, Australia, or even some other European nations. Okay, just recently, a German warship maybe will come to the Taiwan Strait. So that kind of thing is very, very important. It's a team effort. Okay, it's a team effort for the United States to prevail over this situation. But we try to be on alert. We try to say, okay, we need to deter more. Otherwise, they are gonna keep pushing, and then it's gonna be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the other hand, how do you view the military capabilities of the four countries, Japan, Australia, and even Philippines? Does the Philippines specifically most need to strengthen its military capabilities, and does it still require assistance from Japan and the U.S. and also Australia?
Okay, so if you try to do some research, especially you try to look at global firepower report of 2024, the rankings are U.S. is the number 1, and followed by Japan at number 7, Australia at number 16, and the Philippines ranked as the weakest link. Philippines 34. No wonder the Philippines seek backup from U.S., Japan, Australia, and the Philippines and Japan, Australia, they all American bilateral treaty allies. So the Philippines cannot confront China's coercive actions alone. It needs to, in the international practice, we say they need to pursue external balancing to effectively deter China. Like I say, it's better for a team defense, not by yourself. Yeah.
Okay, the defense ministers of these four countries conducted joint maritime patrols in the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines this year, following last year's inaugural security dialogue in Singapore. Despite the formation of a partnership tactical squad among the four countries and the minilateralism security framework in defense of the South China Sea and East China Sea, my question is, will attacks by Beijing in the South China Sea extend to other Southeast Asian countries? After all, we know that besides China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and even Brunei also have overlapping claims in parts of the South China Sea. Professor Liu.
Basically, I don't think this issue will be escalated to include other Southeast Asian countries, because individually, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei have their own individual bilateral relations with China. And basically, I observe their relations currently are progress to a much closer level. Basically, Brunei, Malaysia have much closer relations through all kind of project and economic development infrastructure project. They are working with China. And Vietnam, of course, lately Vietnam's domestic politics has its own new challenge. So at this particular point of time, we hear very little whether Vietnamese are challenging China in the South China Sea, because at this moment, politically, Vietnam needs internally, externally stability. So what we see, further and closer relations between Hanoi and Beijing are moving much further.
So does that mean countries like Vietnam put aside or set aside the sovereignty issue in the South China Sea just for the sake of economic growth in a domestic country, I mean the society?
Yes, basically that would be the point.
Okay, after the meeting of the four countries, Xi Jinping himself visited Europe. Is there any particular reason we kind of shift the attention a little bit why Xi Jinping is actively seeking supports from Europe? Are there any European countries that will show supports for the CCP regarding the South China Sea? Professor Tsai.
Okay, for Xi Jinping, he's looking for a soft spot in Europe because these three countries he visited, okay, like France, Serbia, and Hungary, these three are not happy about the US that world leader, and they would like to hedge with China economically, especially if you look at Hungary. Hungary is not on the same page as other European countries because Hungary, they try to oppose financial aid to Ukraine because the West's support in the world has not yielded results. And also, Hungary and Serbia, they try to support China in the South China Sea dispute, okay? And also China try to help these two countries to construct a railway. So this is but the thing is that except for Hungary and Serbia, the other Central Eastern European countries we call 16+1 bloc are getting the cold feet to welcome Xi Jinping visit this time because maybe some of them are not happy about China supporting Russia, you know, on the Ukraine war. So that's the thing because you know they say if you say you want to be neutral, but in the end you try to support Russia to invade Ukraine. We are not gonna accept that because you're gonna have a big problem to the Eastern European countries.
Russia, in fact, is a big factor. Xi Jinping's visit to Europe raises hopes for assistance in bringing the Ukraine-Russia conflict to a close, likelihood. However, Russia President Putin will soon visit China for the first time in his new term to meet with Xi. So what are China's current concerns? How will Xi Jinping strike a balance between the Ukraine-Russia issue, which Europe cares about a lot, and the South China Sea and Taiwan issues, on the other hand, which are important to China, Professor?
Of course, the critical national interests related to Taiwan and then South China Sea. I think now on the global level, Ukraine war happens to be this global strategic focus for China to move ahead. But of course, currently China is calculating if China can really help Russia to stand firm vis-a-vis the US and European country in the context of Ukraine war. China would get such a response or reward from Russia. Russia currently is involved in this exercise and helping. So in all the policy position, Russian government basically supporting Chinese government in the South China Sea as well as in the Taiwan Strait. So basically, if there would be an order, I would say Taiwan issue is a top priority for China, then the South China Sea. Ukraine war is a critically important, but of course cannot compare with these two immediate issues related to sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to Taiwan Strait, what changes will the relationship between China, Russia, and Europe bring to both sides of the Taiwan Strait? Could you, Professor Tsai, talk about the broader picture about this Russia-China alliance? How is that going to impact the Taiwan Strait, the stability, and also the safety of Taiwan?
Okay, let me say a few things about the European Union because after our presidential elections, the European Union issued a statement to underline the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait are key to regional and global security and prosperity. So that means the EU remain concerned about growing tensions in the Taiwan Strait and oppose any unilateral attempt to change the status quo. But the thing is that in February 2024, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia firmly abide by the One China principle and oppose any dangerous act that provokes China on the Taiwan question. So we take this together. Russia is returning a favor to help China over the Taiwan issue. When the Europe is on board with the U.S. in maintaining the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. So maybe it's alliance competition, that kind of thing. That's what's going on here.
Security military simulation just occurred in Taiwan, and that's called 2024 TTX Regional Security Military Simulation. So what's new about this, and how does that relate to the regional situation, especially involving not only the Western power but also the Russia-China alliance? Professor Liu, you are an expert in this type of military simulation. So what's your observation of it?
Thank you for bringing this question up. I can come up with a very concise point for most of our audience understand what exactly 2024 tabletop exercise happening in Taiwan. The number one point is we assumed and we put this target differently from other war games by Japanese and American colleagues, because we address much longer time frame when something is on the way, perhaps 1 month or 2 months before something happening, looking from political decision in Beijing. Then we start operating and manage all the relations with our friends and allies in the region. So this is number one, different calculation, not simply on the military dimension. The second point is most of war game concentrating on military exercise, looking into the final few days of this invasion from China. So how exactly Taiwan should get prepared for all kinds of weapons. But here, in this tabletop exercise, we are also covering most significant part is societal resilience, how we are going to respond to that general civil society and also our medical system, as well as our energy supply, power supply, and also communication system. So these are another key point. The final key point in such a short period of time I would like to share is the final point is even more important. After this exercise, we can pinpoint to the vulnerability Taiwan's overall society has. So we need to get the worst scenario prepared. So this would be the job, not just for the government, not just for the Ministry of National Defense, it is also for general people here in Taiwan.
You talk about the resilience, given that Taiwan's resilience may not sustain prolonged warfare, especially in the energy and financial sectors. Experts in a military simulation believe that Singapore could serve as a mediator in the event of an escalation of armed conflict across the Strait. So what is your perspective on this?
Okay. Basically, looking back in the past history, the first Gu Wang meeting was held 1992 in Singapore. And later on, back in 2016, former President Ma Ying-jeou met with President Xi Jinping, also in Singapore. And looking into the region, if there would be most suitable country, most of experts, not just Taiwanese expert, but also regional expert consider Singapore may be ideal mediator if there would be something coming in between Beijing and Taipei. But I think this is just a simulation. We need to really get things ready. If something is coming into such a worst scenario, we would have to know how to end it, because currently Ukraine war started quickly, and then nobody would know when, how to stop. Likewise, Israel and Hamas suddenly broke up, and nobody knows how exactly to end. So this is a part of a simulation. We really need to get everything prepared. The worst scenario, if it really happened, not just our society, but also our diplomatic effort would have to quickly connect and identify a potential partner for that.
Mm-hmm. Professor Tsai, President Lai Ching-te will be sworn in as the new president of Taiwan on May 20th. So in your perspective, what military capabilities does Taiwan need to address changes in this international situation?
Yes, because we cannot be sitting ducks in the war. we need to enhance our symmetric capabilities, such as warships, submarines, fighter jets, and a symmetrical capability like drones, javelin, and harpoon missiles simultaneously. We should leverage the nature protection provided stormy water of the Taiwan Strait by deploying water or land mines to deter potential amphibious attacks from China. As former U.S. Deputy Secretary Matt Pottinger suggests, Taiwan should consider constructing a boiling moat around its fortress, because this defense measure involves a moat with water and potentially boiling substance to deter potential aggressor and enhance its defensive capabilities. But also, in the meantime, U.S. is taking the action now because U.S. is sending the most advanced Tomahawk cruise missiles in Japan and has established a new Marine Corps regiment on Okinawa or Taiwan's contingency. And also, in the meantime, the U.S. has transformed its force posture into smaller or more mobile units instead of large military bases. So that means the U.S. is just around the corner and gets ready for a scenario of China attacking Taiwan. So this is very, very important. U.S. is doing a lot of stuff, but somebody say, no, we should doubt U.S. U.S. is not gonna come, but that's not a reality. U.S. has been around and try to help Taiwan to deter China.
Professor Tsai, Professor Liu, thank you for the great insights. Like our show, subscribe to Taiwan Talks. See you next time.